What's good, Denver? It's Shelly Martinez, your host of Chopping It Up with Shelly at Hollywood Barbershop.
This is the barbershop. Barbershop. This is the barbershop. The place where a black man means so.
Denver's Chopping It Up with Shelly over here at Hollywood's Barbershop. I have a special guest in the house today, Francilia Goodloe, wife of owner of Hollywood Barbershop. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So I recently heard that you're in real estate now.
I am.
So
I'm
tell me
very
about
excited.
that.
So, I spent 13 years in healthcare, and I wanted to get into real estate years before I got into healthcare, but the market crashed, and I was like, I want something that is sturdy, and so I went into healthcare. And then the pandemic happened, and I was like, it is time for a change, and so I finally made that leap into real estate. And of course, I made it once again into a time that the market is crazy. The market is unusual right now. So, but I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to still be helping people, but in a different aspect than I was before in healthcare.
Mm-hmm. Tell everyone how you got started in real estate.
Yes. So, there are tons of programs out there. There are in-class programs. There are video programs. There are self-paced options. So I decided to go more with the self-paced because I wanted to keep my day job. I still needed to have some income coming in. So I just studied on my own. And it varies on every person. Some people, you can do the course in 6 weeks, some a year. It took me a year. I did it during the pandemic. But it's just because I was still unsure on if that was going to be what my next step was going to be. But I went ahead and went for it. Yes. And so I just did self-paced for my schooling. Then I studied for my test, took my test, and there's two parts to the test. There is the state test and the national test. It's like 4 hours of just testing. But I did it and I passed. And then, I did some research on what brokerage I wanted to be with. I interviewed with several before I finally chose where I'm at now, which is Ed Prather Real Estate. I'm very happy with my team, and it was a very wise decision as far as the cost of what it takes to be a real estate agent. There's a lot of costs people don't realize. A lot of brokerages charge you desk fees, fees for your business cards, fees to use your website, fees to use the system that what's the word I want to use, that looks at all the leads that are coming in, our CRM system, our CRM system. So there's a lot of fees that go into real estate that they don't really tell you about. Your own insurance, you have to have a different type of insurance than to protect you if something goes wrong in a deal. So there's a lot that goes into it that people don't realize. So I chose this brokerage based on how much I would be paying to hold my license underneath them. Mm-hmm. And then being newly licensed, you do need to hold your license underneath a brokerage for at least 2 years before you can go out on your own. So that's, where I'm at now.
So working for a brokerage company, do they take a percentage of your closing costs?
They do. So they definitely take a percentage of your commission, and it varies. So some are straight down the middle, 50-50. Some are, 60-40, 70-30. It just depends, or 70-40, 70-50, whatever. It just depends on what they're covering. So with my brokerage, it's 50-50 until you get to a certain amount, and then that changes. Then my percentage goes higher, theirs would go lower after a certain amount. And those amounts are not small amounts to get to, and that's and that takes time, and that is just patience. But yes, every brokerage will take a percentage of some sort.
Is that percentage based on productivity, or like how many houses you close, or what the price point is of?
No, it does not matter the price point of the house. It doesn't matter. It does matter when you have closed a certain amount in revenue. So once you're to, 300,000-400,000, then it can change the percentage that they take. But starting out, right now we're at 50-50. I am fairly new, so I've been doing it now for 4 months, and I've closed 2 deals, which from my research is actually pretty good, so I'm proud of myself. But, so I still have a ways to go before my percentage is higher than what my brokerage takes.
So you talked earlier about working for brokerage versus working on your own. So what does working on your own look like after that?
I think, people, want to be self-employed. They want to, hopefully take a bigger percentage by working on their own. But I don't think they realize the cost that goes into running a brokerage. It is a lot. You're having to pay for leads. You have these companies that want to charge you to generate leads for you, and those can get expensive quickly. Then you have overhead of renting a space, your signage, your business cards, your websites. I mean, there is a lot that goes into trying to own a brokerage on your own. So sometimes it's just easier to say, you know what, I'm gonna stay here and split my commission, because it does take less stress on you, stress off of you. Like at my brokerage now, I have a transaction coordinator. So when I close a deal, I tell her, this is my clients, this is where we closed at, this is, the agent, yada, yada, yada. And she opens the file, she, checks the contract, she keeps, dates in line, she makes sure the inspections go out, that the closing dates are assigned, everything is well taken care of, and it's easy. Now, when you are by yourself, it is all you. You're your transaction coordinator, you're your receptionist, you're the one who has to do your marketing. So it just becomes a lot, not saying that it's not impossible, but starting out, there's a lot of costs that go into it, and so it sometimes takes a while for you to have those funds to then be able to hire those people. But then now you're thinking about, paying insurance for those people and all that stuff. So sometimes it's like, you know what? I will just split my commission, and that is okay.
Yeah, it does make it easier. Yeah, especially since you get all the leads and all that extra stuff.
Yeah, and our brokerage spends a lot of money on leads for us, which is nice.
So, are you like limited to a certain demographic of the city, or like, can you sell in Colorado Springs or Pueblo, or is it Colorado in general?
So we are considered the Denver metro area, which is our Lakewood, Inglewood, Westminster, Broomfield, Aurora, Centennial, Parker. We can go up to Fort Collins, and we can go down to Colorado Springs. Pueblo is a little bit further out, and they have their own system. They have their own listings, and things are a little bit different down there. So that's a little far. And not only that, I mean, who really wants to drive to Pueblo for a deal?
Right.
So it's just not convenient. And it depends. Like most people do try to pinpoint one area and stick to it. So, but Denver metro area includes a lot. Outside of Colorado Springs and Fort Collins. But if one wanted to, they could do Colorado Springs or Fort Collins. But we do have people that aren't part of our brokerage that we do communicate with and say, hey, we'll refer you. And then if we do that, then there is a referral fee that we get. So there's options.
When you were deciding to do this during the pandemic, obviously the housing market hadn't been as high as it is now.
Yeah.
So do you still feel confident about what kind of productivity you can bring?
I do. I think what it is trying to educate people. So when I started in March, houses were not lasting. Things were selling. I mean, people were literally putting their house on the market on a Thursday. By Friday night, it was gone. People were getting, 50 to 100,000 over asking. I mean, houses were just not staying. About the end of May, beginning of June, things shifted because the interest rates started going up. The feds are also increasing their interest rates, which caused the housing interest rates to go, the mortgage rates to go up. So people started to get scared. They're like, okay, we're about to hit a recession. And, you know, everyone's like, oh, we're getting close to a recession. No, we are in a recession. And people are scared. So people are not selling their houses and people are not buying. So people who are selling their houses are like, wow, my house has been on the market for 2 weeks. That's scary, you know. But it gives those buyers who could not buy in March, April, May a chance to buy. People are a little nervous about the rate. And like we say, you know, marry the house, you know, date the rate, which means next year or the year after, you can refinance and get into a better rate. But let's get you into a house. And what people don't understand also is that recessions are actually a good time to buy because you're going to make more money on your house. And everyone's like, oh, we're waiting for the housing market to crash. That's not gonna happen. This isn't 2008. Things have changed a lot since 2008 as far as how lending is done. And so, you know, they are stricter on lending. But people can, you know, feel more secure in knowing that, you know, they're not gonna foreclose on their house. They're not gonna lose their house like what happened in 2008. So when we say, you know, the market isn't gonna crash, it's because things have changed. And now is the best time to buy. The present is the best time to buy. Because next year, houses are gonna be more expensive. You know, so when people are like, well, I'm gonna wait to see if it's gonna be more affordable, that's not gonna happen. It's not gonna be more affordable. And next year, you probably won't be able to afford what you can afford now. So a lot of it is trying to educate people and let them know you can afford to buy. You know, if you can pay that $2,500 a month in rent, you know, that doesn't go back into your household, then you can afford to buy. People are like, well, I don't have, you know, $10,000, $20,000 down payment. You don't need that. You know, 3%, 10% is ideal, but there are still a lot of first-time home buyer programs out there that people don't think are there. And I mean, they did go away for a little while, but they are back. And people just need to be made aware of that, and they're not.
So as far as like the first-time home buyer programs, is there an income cutoff?
It depends, yes. It depends on the program. Like, so there are several programs out there, and there's several programs for singles, for couples, and it just depends on what that program allows. And it varies. I mean, I think right now, one for couples is like you can't make over 120 a year or something like that. So there's a lot of wiggle room as to what people can qualify for, and they don't realize that. They're like, oh, well, I make too much. And I'm like, you might not make as much as you think to qualify for these programs. So there's a lot of options, and people get scared to ask questions. You know, buying a home is one of the biggest assets one will purchase in their lifetime. And they're like, well, oh, I gotta talk about my credit, or, you know, oh, they're gonna be in my finances. Yes, but you're building generational wealth by purchasing a home. And so it may be scary to talk about your credit or to talk about your finances, but it's a conversation that needs to be had in order for you to build something better for your family. And what people need to realize is, you know, there's such a great sense of security in owning your own home that you cannot get from renting. And there's just a lot of benefits from it that I think people should take advantage of.
What is like the ideal and then the average credit rating that someone can qualify for?
Yes. 640 will definitely get you in the door. Most lenders can work with 580. But we also know people that can get your credit where it needs to be. So I have a client, I met her in March, and she's like, my credit is terrible. She was working with one guy that was working on her credit, and it didn't go anywhere. So now I talked to her today, and her credit has gone up 100 points.
Wow.
So she did her part. She stayed in contact with him. They did what they needed to do. He did what he needed to do, and is able to raise her credit. And now we are in the process of getting ready to buy, because she finally got her credit up. And it did take some time. I mean, we're talking about March from, April, about April from now. It took a few months, but it was worth it because this has been a goal, and she thought it was so far gone. And then her and I started talking, and she's like, oh, okay, I can do this. And I stayed on her. I made sure she was talking to the credit repair guy. I made sure she was getting things in order. If she had questions about anything, I was there for her to help her answer. So I stayed in contact with her, and I've been in contact with her this whole time, so she didn't feel like she was just left by herself. And I think that's where my background in healthcare, I'm probably one of the few that I'm a bug you, just like in healthcare. Did you pick up your meds, or did you get this schedule, or whatever? I'm that person, and I'm going to make sure you're doing what you need to do to meet your end goal. And so we were able to get her that, and hopefully we can go shopping rather soon.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, so like a lot of the homes that I've seen on the market are a lot of fix-up homes, like for a higher price than,
Yes.
okay? So when you finance a home, can you incorporate the fix-up cost into the loan?
Some people will. There are some companies that do allow that. And it is hard to find those people, especially if you are a first-time home buyer, because if you are doing an FHA loan, which is a federally government program, they are very strict on what the home can look like. Like, you cannot have foundation issues, you cannot have roofing issues, you cannot have plumbing issues. But if you are a conventional loan, then you can find a loan that will help cover those costs of repairs. But unfortunately, most first-time home buyers will have an FHA loan, and so therefore the house kind of needs to be updated and not have issues. And then even with some of those houses that do new repairs, everything is negotiable. Okay. Yes, the owner may think, yeah, I'm gonna charge this. Sir, your house is literally falling apart. Okay. We need to talk about that. We need to have a come to Jesus, and what you think you can get is realistically not what you can get. And we talk to those people, and they're like, okay, well then I'm willing to take this. So usually when people list a home and they list it at a certain price, that's their high point, and there is usually a way for us to come down to a medium so that we can, get someone into that home.
How big is the corporate or the company that you work for right now?
So we have a buyer side and a listing side. We have 3 agents on the listing side, and we have about 19 buyers agents. So it's pretty big. It is pretty big. We are definitely a team. So it's not like there are a lot of companies out here who have teams, but aren't truly teams. You may see each other once a month for meetings or whatever, but if you need help, do you really have anyone to go to? My team is literally, we have someone to go to. And it doesn't matter if it's the seasoned agent or maybe someone who came in after you, someone is always there to help you. And it is very nice. And that was part of the reason why I chose them, was because it is more of a team unit, especially being new, because it's a lot to learn and it's a lot to understand. Contracts are no joke. There is a lot of legal terms in them, and sometimes it's nice to have a second pair of eyes, and everyone is really willing to help you. A lot of these companies, it's not like that, and it is hard to find help when you need help. But I know right now, if I need to call my team lead and say, hey, I need you to review this, even though she is on the beach somewhere, she's like, bet, my laptop is right there, and she's gonna review it. So it is nice to have a team.
Do you feel, right now, are we in a buyer's market or a seller's market?
Neither. We are in this really funky place because a seller's market was when these houses were flying left and right. Now it's like, okay, well, buyers can buy, but now it's like the interest rates are high. So buyers don't really want to buy. So the supply isn't really there for buyers to be in demand. So we're just in this like really middle space where, if we can find the right buyers and the right sellers, then yes, it works perfectly, but it's not neither or right now.
Do you feel like the interest rate is going to lower anytime soon?
No, absolutely not. We will probably see another increase, a couple more increases before the end of the year. especially with the feds increasing as well a couple more times before the end of the year.
So a lot of people talk about how it's so expensive to live here and things like that. Where do you see Denver going with this?
I am trying to keep my faith and hope that Denver realizes that they need to figure out how to increase people's pay, because yes, it is expensive, and minimum wage is only at 15 and some change. People can't afford to buy anything. I mean, they can't even afford to buy a 1-bedroom condo on that. So I'm hoping Denver will realize, okay, you guys have got to increase the wage in order for it to equal out to what the cost of living is in Colorado, even as to rent. I mean, people at $15 an hour can't even afford rent in Colorado, and especially in Denver. So, wages need to be up here so that we can finally be on a middle ground with housing. And there is enough smart people in Denver to make that happen. But we are very behind on wages and compared to our cost of living. Yeah.
Well, you guys, check out Francelia. Where can we find you on Instagram and all your social media?
So I'm on Instagram, Facebook. Instagram is francilia.realestate.agent at Instagram. I mean, it's Francelia, Francelia. It's not hard to find that part, and then the rest will follow.
Okay.
Yes.
And then what was the mortgage company you're with?
So the brokerage I am with is Ed Prather Real Estate.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. You guys feel free to reach out to Francilia. She'll help you, get the ball rolling on getting, your own home. And she's very knowledgeable, as you can see, and she'll take care of you and stay on top of things and make
Absolutely.
sure that everything is done at closing
Yes,
time.
absolutely,
right?
yes.
So,
make sure you get your keys.
That's right. So again, bring another one of Denver's best to Hollywood Barbershop, Francilia Goodloe. Good having you here,
Thank you,
and
Shelley.
I hope everybody reaches out. I'm going to be one who reaches out.
Absolutely, I'm ready.
I need that contact for your credit guy,
Yes.
and then I'm almost there. So let's get it
We
done.
can